Live from Greenwell Point, Australia at the Stretch Therapy headquarters. I want to talk about Pike Pushups because a lot of people are using them, and not some sort of fitness tutorial like, oh, you get your butt up and then you push up and that's good. No, none of this bullshit. I want to talk about how to do them in a way that corresponds towards the movement pattern of the freestanding handstand push-up, because that's the mistake a lot of people make. And I really don't program these. I don't teach this movement often when I do live classes, because I just found it really hard to coach unless, and again, it depends on the goal. If you're just trying to do vertical push, it doesn't matter as much. But if your goal is to work up to a freestanding handstand push-up, it follows a very specific movement pattern. And the idea to understand is that a freestanding handstand push-up with balance, it doesn't go like this, it goes like this. There's a bit of a horizontal element, and it's difficult to account for that when doing a pike push-up because your feet are on the ground and you can just put weight into your feet. So I've found this to be quite difficult to coach. I found this one actually to be harder to coach oftentimes than actual handstand push-up progressions, because if you're in a handstand, there's less potential mistakes that you can make. So it is a useful exercise. It can be very helpful in developing the handstand push-up. You just have to know how and what the right intention is and just follow specific cues. So I want to talk about how to do that. So before actually getting on the ground and doing the push-up, it's just good to understand the movement pattern that we're trying to work with. So the back isn't going to be vertical. It's going to be a little bit tilted, but we want to get it as close to vertical as we can. And then the motion with the shoulders, this is the really important thing. So it's not this, right? That will only work in a handstand push-up if you're against the wall or if somebody's holding your feet. What I'm looking for is, and there's a few elements here, and if you watch my handstand shoulder positioning video, we're going to break a few of these elements, and that's why it's important to know them. So we're going to go from open shoulder position to closed, like this. As we go from open to close, the scapula are going to go from elevated to depressed. So as you close the shoulders, there's going to be a little bit of a lat engagement. Nothing too crazy because it's still a pushing move, but that movement is really important to understand. And then what's going to happen is that's when we start to rotate. So we start to screw the shoulders out, extra rotation. And what should end up happening is this. I'll go a little bit further away. I'll kneel lower. So we have the forearms should be staying vertical the whole time. This is the main idea to understand for the freestanding handstand push-up, because the body moves around the arm. So what I always try to think about, no matter what's happening, I can keep balance as long as the elbow is in line with the heel of the hand. And what happens when people are on the wall or in their pike push-up, the pressing portion, the strength, gets difficult. As they do so, they go outwards with the elbows, because if you're doing military press, you have the option to do that because you're already balancing. They do that, and then they dump the weight back into their feet or into the wall for some reason. So this is the important thing to understand, and you can do this. You can even think of like a dynamic tension kind of exercise where you're trying to apply force. I'm putting tension in my muscles. Arms go in front of my body, and the forearms are vertical the whole time. So this idea, this movement with the shoulders is really important to understand before we start to get upside down. You know, the pike push-up itself, it's going to be simple enough. I just want you to follow a couple cues that if you haven't done it this way before, I guarantee it's going to make it a lot harder. And harder is good because that means that it's getting you closer to being strong enough to do a freestanding handstand push-up, hopefully, if that's your goal. So I do hands a little bit wider than shoulders. I do maybe a little bit turned out because it's a strength move, but that's not too big of a deal. The main cue that I'm looking for is you're going to have to go more forward with your shoulders than you think. At any point that it gets difficult, it's guaranteed that, because it's just body conservation of energy, it's guaranteed that you're putting weight back into your feet. Putting weight back into your feet means you would have fallen if you were doing a freestanding handstand push-up. So that's really important to understand. So as the lower you go down, think more shoulders forward, and as you do so, the elbows should stay completely vertical. They should not go back behind the heel like this. That's how you know. And then everything else is details. So the way I like to set up is actually on the toes, like this. So rather than being here or here, if I'm on top of those toes, I'm less likely to put weight into them. And I just have a better sensitivity of how much weight I'm putting into my feet, because the goal is less weight into the feet. You don't have to have a crazy pike stretch here, and I'll show a couple options, but you do want the hips as high as possible, and you want some kind of a spine angle. Something like this. I don't know what angle this is. Not quite 45, maybe a little bit higher than 45. Whatever you can manage, as long as your hips are as high as possible. And then the other thing is try not to be in kind of like a yoga downward dog position. Trying not to be here, but trying to be already here. So almost like I'm going for a press handstand. The weight is in the hands, the traps are activated. So I'm trying to use it for a handstand. So in the start position, I want to already be in as close to a handstand as I can. I don't want to be taking weight off the hands, because that makes it easier, and easier is not the point because we're trying to get stronger. So I'm going to show you what those look like. Try to find a good angle. So here, set up in position. I lean forward. I bend. I continue to lean forward as I bend. I touch the nose, and then I come back. So I'm exaggerating the movement a little bit, but what I'm doing is planching from the shoulders first, then bending the elbows, then straightening, and then finish by opening. You don't have to do it this way, but if you're new to the movement, I suggest it because it helps you understand it a little bit more. The other thing people do sometimes is they keep their head neutral and they touch the top of the head. One thing that's going to do is rob you of a little bit of range of motion because the top of the head is longer than if I do this. The other thing is that if you're doing it in a freestanding handstand push-up, you're probably going to be in a neck extension looking at the floor. So I try to go either nose to the floor or kiss the floor. So do a couple reps for you so you can see. So up, one, shoot, and push, shoot. I never push back here. I stay on top of my hands. So even though I can do handstand push-ups fairly easily, doing these in this very specific way is still quite difficult. I still feel a lot of my shoulders. So give that a try. Just a couple details, but it's really important to understand. And then let me show you also just a couple common mistakes people might make. So they start here like this. See where the elbows are going? They're going out. And as the elbows are going out, my feet are getting heavier, which is, it's not really helpful. Some people are going to spend too much time here. They go there and then they go, but they're trying to stay off their hands. No, I want you to stay on your hands longer. And then the head, it's not going to go in between the hands. It should go way out in front. So when you kiss the floor or tap your nose, whatever you're doing, your head should be quite far in front of your hands to create a triangle, because that bottom of the handstand push-up, if you watch people do it, it's tilted. It should be tilted, so we're trying to account for that. And then, not something that you'll really understand when you're in there, but we do actually want more or less the same spine angle to the floor the whole time, so there shouldn't be a lot of up and down movement of the spine. It should stay in more or less the same place. Whoa, 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 whoo. So, this should make it harder. Give it a go. See what it does. Let me know. Alright, so you can elevate the feet. It's another option. Makes it a bit more difficult, so I would say try this after you have the basic floor variation. But I'm going to set up here. Find your distance. Now the hips are a bit higher compared to where they were. Same idea. Lean forward. Kiss the floor. Push. Come back. Same idea, I'm on the tops of the toes. I try to keep the feet as light as possible. They actually both feel pretty similar to me. This one I can feel is a bit more vertical, so it's closer to a handstand push-up, but the movement pattern is very much the same, even if my feet are lifted up. And then one more variation, if you want to start working the range of motion towards full handstand push-ups. So if you do them on the floor, you can only get to here, which if you were doing a military press, it would be only a half rep. Eventually you want to get shoulders level with the hands. So you can get some parallettes or a couple boxes, and the idea is the same. It's the same thing. You just go all the way down. I like to feel that it can't go further here, so I know that it's at the bottom, but I'm still maintaining that push, that tension upwards. Follows the same rule. The back is tilted the whole time, hips up, and then always forearms vertical to the floor. Elbow is always on top of the heel of the hand. I'll show you a couple reps of that. So find your width, find your setup. Whoa. So here's my handstand. I lean forward, I go all the way down. Whoa. I press. Whoa. And then I push back. So a little bit more difficult. I would say, if I'm being honest, this one feels less like a full handstand push-up compared to the other two. So I wouldn't use this as a primary exercise, if I'm being honest. If your goal is handstand push-ups, I would be doing stuff in the handstand first, because then there's less mistakes that are potentially, less mistakes that can potentially happen. Whereas here it's easy to skew the movement pattern. So I would do handstand work first. But what the pike push-ups allows you to do is assistance work to build strength, groove the range of motion a little bit, and you can do higher reps. So I would use this as a secondary after any kind of handstand push-up work in the actual handstand. But yeah, give it a try. Let me know how it goes. I hope this was helpful. Check out my workshops around the world. I offer online coaching. I do private sessions in Vegas if you're ever visiting. And I have an online training group as well where we focus on different topics every month, so you're welcome to sign up for that. No bullshit, no obligations. You can sign up for 1 month and quit. You can sign up for a year, whatever you want to do. Yeah, let me know what else you'd like to see, and like, share, subscribe. Thumbs up.